See how many. And you can't even see how many. It's like many.
It started with me watching. Which movie did I watch?
We've only watched like 20 of them, so I don't remember.
It started with what I watched, and then Arwen said,
the 1984 one.
Yes, I found the 1984 one on a free streaming service. And I was like, hey, not seen that one before.
I had.
And the next thing I know, this one here has watched 10 Christmas carols.
Well, they were available. Anyway, I had a stack. It was on the list of stuff to do. So I had made a collection. So I sort of went, this is my moment to watch all of them. So I did.
Yes.
And we watched let's go through with them. We can start with the 1984 one.
Okay.
If you like, I need to go find it. Just a second. We have it.
Okay, A Christmas Carol, 1984. It is a TV movie, and it is George C. Scott as Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah, this is 1984, but it is 4x3. It's a TV movie, but it's an American-UK co-production. And one of the most charming things I thought was about it is it is absolutely full of traditional carols. The ones that you don't often hear. Some of them I recognized all of them, but they're the ones that you very rarely hear. And it was a very nice caroling set of people that just pop up once in a while and carol beautifully. Mm-hmm. So, yay, carols.
Yeah, well, then that's a good excuse to get your carol choir out and just write it to it.
Yeah.
Because you can write carols into the entire thing.
Yeah. For the story, they do the story. So
straight up. Very straight.
We made a little spreadsheet with elements of each of these things, and one of these elements is it story, is it book accurate? And the book accuracy for this one is about 8+. Out of 10. I used the Dutch school system in which a 5 is a fail, a 6 is a pass, and anything over a 6 is better and better.
It's happiness.
8 minus is very, we're very happy about that. They do the story, which is what you're supposed to do. They do it pretty credibly. The Scrooge, George C. Scott is a big blurry guy. He's a little bit too strong, a little bit too healthy, but that's fine. I mean, he does really well.
Basically, all of them have that problem.
Yeah.
But you want a formidable actor for it who is not. You can go two ways. One, you can go with an actor that is young enough so he can play the young Scrooge, and you make up for the older one. Or you get just a 50-year-old actor who is seasoned, knows what he's doing, can land the role, but then you need another actor for the young Scrooge. Yeah. And of course one for the boy. And there was like one version that had like 5 Scrooges or something like that.
They did the boy, a lot of different boys, so you'd have to have different boys for that. Yeah. But this is a very nice Scrooge. We didn't write down. Another commendation for the Tiny Tim. This is one of the younger Tiny Tims,
really cute.
And he was really cute. And he actually did his delivery of lines. I mean, his little kid delivery of lines was really good for a little kid, and so it was charming. This is a pretty charming version.
Yeah, and David Warner as Bob Cratchit is absolutely delightful.
Yeah, in his most pastiness, the pastinessness I've ever seen him in. He's like, oh, I'm real pale.
Yeah.
And I think they probably were recording in the UK, so you get the ambience and stuff like that. And they have a really good studio, and I think they have pretty much a permanent Dickensian set going on there. So they could easily film it there. So this is kind of a run-of-the-mill one, but it's a good one.
What I found with this one is that they put more words to explain things. It's still the early 80s, and they're still willing to take you by the hand and say, hey, this is what this is about. We do the original text, and then we embellish it a bit so that the modern audience can actually understand it. So things get repeated a little bit, but in a very, very good and clever way.
Yep.
When the Ghost of Christmas Present repeats back to him about, decrease the surplus population, Scrooge actually, rather than just sits there and be horrified, he actually says how horrific that is. And then I think the ghost says something like, it's easy to talk about population that you don't know, but when you know this population and you see the little boy dying, that's where it changes, doesn't it?
And actually, that's actually in the book.
Is it?
That's in the book.
Okay.
And basically, and we'll talk about the book some more, but one of the main points about the book is Scrooge's speech early on, where he talks about are there no prisons, are there no... Turns out that is actually something a politician in the 1840s said, and which he put... This is the reason he wrote this book, because he wanted to make a manifest about how horrible that is, but he wanted to do it in such a way that people would actually read it, as in a book. And because he had already done some... Dickens had already done some political speeches, but they don't go anywhere. This went somewhere because it is nicely packaged. And so this speech about... the
surplus population.
Basically, yes. The surplus population speech from Scrooge early on, and then repeated by the ghosts later back at him as... See how horrific it is. These are the salient points of the book. Yeah. This is why the book exists. This is the central message of the book, and they do it here in pretty much most of the versions we've seen it. They make that point because they understand that is the central point of the book, and I'm glad they did it properly and did it in such a way that you can understand it, because
they gloss over it in a lot of versions because
they downplay it. Yeah.
Sometimes they don't even say the line at all, and sometimes I will come to ones that don't. But and sometimes they only have him say it at the beginning, and everybody's going, "Wow, that is an unfeeling and horrific thing to say." However, have we not heard the same thing said at the beginning of the lockdowns in 2020? Yeah. So. Let's
politicians keep saying the same thing.
Yeah, let's not think that this is not timely. Anything Dickens wrote is that is very much Dickensian age, but it's also there's stuff still happening that needs addressing.
Yeah.
So we rate this one with a score of 8.
Yeah, 8 out of 10.
We like this one. It's really good, straight storytelling. If you want to know. A good Christmas Carol. Want to see good Christmas Carol? Yes.
Okay, and let's go to...
let's go anywhere.
Let's go to a bad Christmas Carol.
Oh, a bad one. Okay. This is a 2009 one. It's
Disney.
Disney. Directed by Robert Zemeckis and also written by... with Jim Carrey as Scrooge. I didn't see this one because she told me not to watch it.
See the book accuracy rating is pretty high. It's a 7.5. So the 7.5 is what I gave something that does most of the elements in the thing, but not exemplary, and it doesn't leave important bits out. So you get a 7.5. The problem is the final score is 6-.
Now you have to tell people who are not Dutch. A 6- means that it's a passing grade, but basically everything is falling by the wayside the moment you exit the exam room. You have not understood enough of it to actually continue with this.
My teachers would give a 6.5 if it was a failing grade, but they knew that somewhere inside the possibility of a passing grade was there. It's just not here right now.
This is a 6-.
Yeah, 6-. Yeah. This is a 6- because we really want to give you a
like,
5, a fail.
But we kind of don't want to fail you, so okay.
Well, the thing is that this is a very expensive production. The money is there. This should have been a pass. This should have been a proper. This 7.5 should have been continued all the way down the line to the end. but it is so. It's like it's 3D animation, but the first time they want to do realistic, and it doesn't work. And they found that out the hard way. They've never done it again this way again, because the Uncanny Valley, everybody is ugly. Even the pretty people are ugly. They made Colin Firth ugly.
Oh no! What about Robin Wright? Robin Wright is the Princess Bride, so there ain't no way she's ever gonna be ugly.
Robin Wright, I think she's supposed to be Bella. Bella is passably pretty, but then with Bella I have some extra problems that the later scene when she breaks up with him, she's wearing black. Why is she wearing black?
Only if she's in mourning, so one of the parents would have had to die.
Yes, in Dickensian times, only if you were in mourning were you going to be wearing black. And not just, you're as a fashion choice, you will wear black. No, if you're not in mourning, you are not wearing black. Done.
And you can't be a goth.
You can't be a goth, and it's a statement.
And there was rules.
Black,
exactly. How much black for how long for which relative? Yes.
So I have no idea why she's wearing black. It's possible that because she is Fezziwig's daughter in a lot of the different versions. I don't know if she actively is in the book. I think maybe she may be.
No, I don't think so.
But in a lot of versions, they shorthand her in as Fezziwig's daughter, which is fine. Yeah. And so Fezziwig can die, but they don't say it. So it's sort of a what. There's a lot of what the F's in this thing, and like Scrooge going on a ride down the sewers for no reason.
Okay, so one of the descriptions that I found online, and it could have been Wikipedia, is that Christmas Carol is actually rated as a horror story. Because it is a ghost story, and that's on purpose, because that was the tradition to tell ghost stories at Christmas.
Yes.
Which is a very odd tradition when you think about it, and I think A Christmas Carol is one of the few things left over from that tradition.
But the subtitle of the original story is a Christmas ghost story.
Ghost story, and because that was the English tradition. And so to then go from ghost to horror makes sense. So maybe they thought, let's go. I mean, Disney may have thought, which sounds odd to even say it, let's go horror with this.
Yeah, but the thing is, they don't do it in the right places. They make Colin Firth just look ugly because they don't. I think they meant him to look human and handsome, but he doesn't. And so there's horrific things in, like, we did skim through the first scene, and it's like dead Marley, and Ilana was
she was out to show me why I shouldn't watch.
That was quickly done.
This movie was actually filmed and then made into an animation.
Yes,
and it's a certain technique that they were trying. But I'm thinking with this cast, even with Jim Carrey, who's not a pretty person, but Scrooge does not need to be pretty. You just need a good actor for him. And you could have just left it there. There's no need to animate it.
The problem with Jim Carrey, one of the other problems with this movie is actually Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, okay.
The thing that makes A Christmas Carol interesting is that you get a very dry, stuffy gentleman whose life gets shook around, and then he reacts to it, which is the last scene. And mostly you have this dry, stuffy gentleman. And Jim Carrey is great at the end, where he can jump around and be happy. But Jim Carrey is not you need somebody like a Patrick Stewart or
Albert Finney.
Or an Albert Finney can play anything. Yeah. And or even a George C. Scott, which was the previous one. He is a stately gentleman. And then when he starts to get happy, when he starts to smile, you feel like his face is breaking. Yes. Whereas Jim Carrey, he's all over the place, and that is from the start, and that's a problem, because that in combination with the fact that all this extra stuff,
it's like a maniacal version of Scrooge.
Yeah, but he's also distracted, and we are distracted by the fact there's also mice, and we have take a ride down the sewer. There's an emotional scene where he is at the Cratchits, and he's small because the spirit made him small, but then the mice come and Cratchit
sounds like
they are everybody's distracted by everything else, and it is just distraction after distraction after distraction.
There's already way too much in this story to tell in an hour and a half.
Yeah, and then you distract us with
it's an hour and a half.
Yeah, with 3D. They also have 3D disease because it's 2009. That's one of the first 3D movies. So you have to do the fly over London, woo, and it distracts you so much.
Okay.
Next.
Not a recommendation then. This
Six
is
minus.
This is the lowest one yet. Right. So, A Christmas Carol, 1977 TV movie, directed by Moira Armstrong, which is a woman. Writing credits Elaine Morgan, which is a woman. I am just saying because that doesn't happen very often.
BBC.
And then Michael Hordern. Hordern as Scrooge.
It's BBC. BBC. Look at
book accuracy 9+. That's like an A.
And the thing is, look at the time.
Look at the time.
And running time.
It's only 58 minutes.
It was a TV special that they did a lot of. This 1977 is the age when BBC churned out costume dramas as tea time things, as one-offs. This one because they couldn't make this in a longer
and
thing.
They had this whole Royal Shakespeare Company thing going on.
Every single person in this cast list is a major actor on the stage, and in 58 minutes should be too short to do it to Christmas Carol properly, and yet they do it. Everything's in here.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. And Michael Hordern is a very, very stately gentleman, but he can play anything because good actor, really good actor, but very stately gentleman. And you get the stodginess of Scrooge very well in him. And as he loosens up throughout the thing, the only reason it goes from an 8+ book accuracy to an 8.5 final score is because, it could have done like 10 minutes, 15 minutes longer, and it would have been even better.
Give them a bit of time. And that may have been production, money, anything. Or maybe they just literally had to squeeze it out in whatever they was given.
The 58 minutes is a BBC hour because they have like 2 minutes to at the top of the hour to announce. So this is just an hour slot. This is not an hour and a half thing. This is an hour slot. So it's just an in-between hour slot probably on Christmas. It's meant for Christmas. This already in a world that had the Albert Finney version from 1970s, which is an ultimate version. Which we'll do in a second.
Seen that. Everyone in Europe anyway.
Yeah.
It was huge.
We can do that next, but this
the Ghost of Christmas Past here says it's a female. That happens sometimes. Christmas Past
very often because
sometimes female.
The Ghost of Christmas Past and the Ghost of Christmas Future are sort of undefined. Only the present is defined as male.
Very clear, sort of the Father Christmas type.
Here's a little tidbit for the people who are like our BBC stuff. The Martha Cratchit, who is one of the daughters of Cratchit, is played by the actress who played Jane Eyre like 5 years later.
Yeah, because that's what, 1982, 4, something like 3?
83.
So she would be 5 years older and she was something like 21, so it makes a big difference. Yeah, so she would have been one of the older Cratchit girls.
She plays here the older Cratchit girl that's already working. Yeah. Yes. And everything's this is a good general version. I'm not sure if it's on. I don't think it's on YouTube.
But I also want to say that to have it directed by a woman and written by a woman in 1977 is worth mentioning because it really doesn't happen that often. I always check. Not that I remember all the names, but I check what kind of name is coming by in those upper echelons, like the produced by, written by, directed by, and if I see something that is non-Anglican, non-male, things like that, I'm like, hey, especially until about 5 years ago, dudes.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
And BBC was already progressive with these kind of things. I think we should probably go to the 1971 right away anyway, because we just mentioned it. 1970, actual movie that was in the cinema. a nice box, well, a little bit wider than widescreen.
It's very wide, yeah.
And there is a lovely transfer of on Blu-ray.
It's gorgeous.
Crisp and gorgeous, and it's filmed for film, and so it has all the looks.
It's the color and the production and the music and everybody singing, and they take their time. It's an hour and 53 minutes.
Yeah. There is a version of it on YouTube. I put that, and when there's a version on YouTube, I put a mark on it.
Oh.
It's probably not going to be the Blu-ray, but it was on British television every year for many years, and still I think it's on every year. So this is a staple of actual British. Anybody in Britain has seen this.
Yeah.
Up to and including a certain writer who wrote a wrong entire universe with magic and stuff, who we shall not name, but she based the Weasleys on the Cratchit. These Cratchits, because these have red hair as well. Well,
Yeah.
I think they actually don't have red hair, but the film is colored a little bit too strongly, and it colors them red. So they are not redheads, but they look like they're redheads.
It is a fun film. They are very happy, Cratchits.
Oh gosh.
Very often they're happy, but these are they really pull it off. It's hard in some of the, especially some of the black and white ones, where they really wanted to emphasize how hard their life was. It's hard to bring out the joy, and in this one, because they're singing, he picks the kids up, and they're already singing about toys and Christmas, and I hope it's gonna snow. I mean, it's all about simple life, and
It's a very joyful version. I think the book, actually, I put it at about 8, because they have a lot of that. It's a musical. They have to spend the time on being a musical. Then they had to give back a couple of scenes, so you don't get more than 8 out of it for book accuracy. But what is there is very choice, and it's a mood thing. The mood they do. Also, Albert Finney. Albert Finney as Scrooge. He's actually the youngest Scrooge on this so list. Good. He's like in his 30s, but he's playing the older Scrooge, and only incidentally plays himself as younger.
He plays the younger Scrooge.
Yeah,
and that's really nice.
And that is nice.
That
but
he can pull that off.
They concentrated on his older aspects, whereas
and he looks grim, grisly, and gruesome in the older version. But he doesn't look like in the American version that we will discuss, where you can see that it's like a pancake and they did something with the hair. But they did all that in this movie, but because he just shrivels himself up.
Yeah, and
like
you can see it.
He does that so well.
There's a scene of very young man, and he walks around as a young man, but then a little later...
And then he is the prototype of Daddy Warbucks.
Little later, he is actually in an in-between scene where Bella comes and they say goodbye. And then you can already see he's going a little bit like this.
And his hair is... At first he has his hair, like friendly hair, like a little bit color, curls, I mean. And then when she picks him up, he's down. He's very straightforward. And he's like, I don't discuss personal affairs during business hours and that kind of thing. Which fiancé says that to his fiancée?
The look that Albert Finney, because this is what Albert Finney does better than anyone else on this list. He can be anything. People say you can't be taller, you can't be shorter.
He can.
He can.
He is actually shorter.
He does this. Yeah. In the later scenes, he goes all the way over that, and he does that, and he keeps it up. He must have had a backache afterwards. Oh my God! But that's why
that's what you're willing to do then.
But that's why you get Albert Finney, because he can do that. And once he had done this version, it took a very long time before people did another version, because this was so conventional. Like I said,
all the music and the big production numbers. Yeah. How are you going to top that?
And so the next best version after that, the next version at all after that, is basically the Michael Hordern version in 1977 TV short, just in that 1 hour version, because this one was such a colossus and it completely waltzed everything else flat. Yeah. It got. I gave it an 8.5, because I think even though the book accuracy is only an 8, they elevated some of the elements quite a bit, and the Scrooge is so scrumptious.
I also love that they spent, because it's all in the music. The actual story is in the music, or the music helps the story. And so he walks home from his office to his home, but he goes past all these places that he's picking up money, and everybody's defaulting on the payment and has to negotiate with him how to pay it, and then he tacks on, but that's gonna cost you 15 shilling more, and I don't know how to go from a shilling to a pound, but it's clearly, it's like, you know, just for this 1 week more, you're gonna have to pay 20% more, that kind of stuff.
12 shillings to a pound.
Yeah, then he was adding on 30% or so, because it's usually picking up 2.5 pounds, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For this installment of this week, so he's doing that on his way home, just for jollies and laughs on Christmas Eve, after 7 o'clock, because they make a point of saying that he doesn't leave. I don't know if that's in this movie as well, but he doesn't leave until 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve.
I think it's in the book.
Because that's when office hours closes, and that's
when Cratchit leaves. But then Scrooge,
so he has to leave after that because he has to close up. Scrooge
stays an undisclosed amount of time after.
Yeah, that's also, and in some versions you have him still working the books at home as well. He'll have books there as well. Yeah. Some versions he actually lives in the building, but in a lot of versions he doesn't.
In the book he doesn't. He lives in another building.
Right. Okay. So
he has to travel. But this is not the most accurate version, but it has the right feel.
It has an impact, because they do spend time, like that 1984 version, where they spend a little extra time on, let's drive this point home. If he goes by 3 market stalls to collect money and they all default, and they're nice people, they're people wearing decent clothing,
little old ladies selling toys to kids
for charity, and still they have debts to pay, and then it also says something about the economy of the days, that the normal the guy selling what is it, soups or something on the street, that he actually needs to go to a loan shark, and he can't go to a bank to bankroll his little stall on the street, which is insane, but that does sound about right for 1840.
Yeah.
You know, we need good economic situations. So that's another point that Dickens, I think, always wants to make. Yeah. And one of the things about this movie is the first time that I saw him fall into the grave.
Yeah, and that's not in the book.
But it comes back in different versions after that.
The thing about these iconic versions, and this version has that, but the Alistair Sim from 1951 also has that. It puts out, probably should do that one next.
Let's do Alistair Sim.
It puts out a bunch of elements that people then pick up and have either feel they have to work with, or they really like them. But sometimes they just feel, the previous version that was so very popular did that, so we have to do that, and sometimes that's a problem.
Christmas Carol, also known as Scrooge. It actually came out, this is 1951 version, it came out as Scrooge in the UK. But for the American market, it was renamed A Christmas Carol.
Yeah. Also,
it's just 127 minutes, so it's not quite an hour and a half, with Alistair Sim as Ebenezer Scrooge.
It is on YouTube, if you want to see it. On IMDb,
you should be able to get this everywhere.
IMDb, it's listed as a TV movie. It is not. It's a cinematic movie. It's where I crossed it out.
In 51, there was no such thing as a UK TV movie.
No. And there's also means, because it is an actual movie, that there is an excellent Blu-ray out of it. Of it. It's sharp as a button. It's beautifully sharp. So if you want one with just good actual visual quality, this
is also the one where the thing where he opens the window and says, "Boy, delightful boy, tell me what day it is." That's the one that is always in all other movies where you need to have that scene, because it's a Christmas movie and there's like shorthand of now it's Christmas Day and people are watching A Christmas Carol. That's this movie.
Yeah, it's absolutely iconic. Before the 1970 movie existed, this was your go-to movie.
It's 19 years before they topped this. And I think if this had been in color, and there is a colorized version now that they brought out as a special edition much more recently.
I don't like
seriously recently. And you know, people are divided on whether or not that's worth doing. But there is one out. But if they had made it in color, it might have held up even more.
Interesting thing to note. Michael Hordern was Scrooge in 1977. Here, he plays Marley. The ghost of Marley, and he actually gets extra scene.
26 years younger.
Yes.
Marley did die fairly young.
Yeah.
Because if they were contemporaries and he died 7 years ago.
We don't know if he was contemporary. We know nothing. We literally know nothing about Marley. I looked it up. Michael Hordern, when he played in 77, he was 66 years old, and so he's 44. He's 45 here.
He's in his 40s. That's perfect for.
One of the things that is interesting about this movie, and I'm not sure if this is a good thing, I'm still debating it because it goes against book accuracy, is they added a bunch of extra scenes. Some more interaction scenes between young Scrooge and Marley. Marley played by Patrick MacNee.
But only 2 scenes, unfortunately. But it's so lovely to see him in it.
And then later, Michael Hordern and a younger Alistair Sim as Scrooge. But it shows their business dealings, and these are more of a whereas in the book it is not quite clear what Scrooge does other than something with money, and a lot of versions go he's a loan shark. He's straight up a loan shark. He just lends out money and then tries to get it back with much added interest. Here he actually goes into business. They do sort of a business
merchant shipping and something else was on their shingle.
And Fezziwig, the very first employer that he worked for, in the book again, it's not clear what he does, but very often in many versions they make him something other than a loan shark. He's not in the loan shark business, but
he is there. Scrooge is there to do the accounting. He is there for the bookkeeping. And he never ventured out of that.
Exactly.
Except for one version, which we will discuss.
Yes. And I like the scenes. I mean, they are not book accurate, but they give you some extra. In the book. Yeah, they're implied, and they give you a little bit of meat and potatoes to the situation. And I think it's also a case because they had Michael Hordern and Alistair Sim and Patrick MacNee and whoever plays the young. Everybody in this thing are great actors, so you want to do some extra scenes if you can, especially Michael Hordern and Alistair Sim together. You want to do an extra scene.
The other scene that they added in that I've not seen in other things is Fanny dying. Fan, the sister, she dies in pretty much in Scrooge's arms, but the husband is standing right there, and there's almost no. He really needs a nameplate saying this is the husband, because Scrooge goes from her as she's dying, walks up to a young man. Basically, his eyes show, "I want to kill you," and then he walks out, and he's done with the whole affair.
The implication of many versions is, and it's not in the book, it's definitely not in the book because you have options, is that Fanny died giving birth to Fred. Yeah.
And that is in this
one. And that is a central theme that many use. It's not in the book. But that is a way how women die is in childbirth. And then men blame whoever is the husband or the child, for the death.
Yeah. And in the 1984 version, I read the stuff about it, and they said for this Scrooge version, they wanted to show that Fanny died in childbirth to give birth to Freddie, and that resonated with Scrooge because his mother died in childbirth and his father rejected him. That was a very strong scene in the 1984 version where Fanny gets him out of the school when he's young, but the father immediately says, "Hey, you're only coming home for 3 days, and after that I've already got you a place at an apprenticeship, and you don't need more than 3 days at home, right?" And he says, "Yes, sir." So this guy hated his guts. He wanted nothing to do with.
And it's so normal. So this is fair enough. The other thing that's interesting is the death scene of Marley is in here, where Scrooge tries to not be there when it happens, but he's still.
He is such a bastard. Oh, what a shit. And there's another version where we saw that, but is that the only two versions?
Yeah, and I think the other version, because this is later, is because of this version.
It's because they saw this one.
Yeah, and
yes.
Every version, I actually briefly considered doing this in order of how they were made, but
I thought about that as well.
But definitely, it's a case of the next generation has seen the previous version and has to either incorporate it or reject it, or at least think about why are they doing either one of these things.
Yeah.
And
it's a continual conversation, and
yes.
Of course there are also at the same time they are also doing stage productions, local productions, and some of them became very famous, and they were cycled around, and they were musicals, and there were plain, and there were one-man shows, and all of this stuff is all in conversation with each other for, let's call it a century, because the first one is 1901.
Yes, and the first one that's on film is 1901.
The first film one. Yeah.
Yes, and
but they were already putting on plays from 1844 onwards, which is 1 or 2 years after the book came out.
43 came out, so pretty much exactly.
Yeah.
Incidental little tidbit I ran into, which is sort of on the side, is some of these versions have Christmas trees and some of them don't.
Yeah.
The Christmas tree, I looked it up because the book came out in 1843. In 1844 is the first time that Christmas trees start to publicize.
Right.
It was already in the family, but the first time they started to publicize it, show pictures and stuff like that. So literally by a year, you miss it to put it in.
I think we need to spend a few more words on this. So Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband, was German, and in the Netherlands and in Germany the tradition is to have a Christmas tree, which doesn't especially have to do with the baby Jesus or anything like that. And he brought it over because they didn't do Christmas at all much.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, because because she was also from German extraction, and they also they already had Christmas trees when she was a kid. It's just that she publicizing it outward, showing pictures of the family with the Christmas tree. That was Albert's idea.
Yeah, and
didn't get around to it until about 1844, because he had been around there. So
there you go.
You missed it by a year. The Albert Finney version, from 1970, actually sets the entire story in 1860s, and then you can have Christmas trees all over. But when you do it properly in 1843. Then you can't have a Christmas tree. You can have lots of holly, but no Christmas tree. They didn't have them yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the holly, there was one version where they were kissing under something that I didn't even recognize as holly. So there must have been other stuff that
mistletoe. When you kiss under, it's mistletoe. And that's a sort of, it doesn't look very interesting, mistletoe.
It did not look interesting, no.
Okay,
right. The very first film that we know of, Scrooge or Marley's Ghost, 1901, directed by Walter R. Booth and Daniel Smith as Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah.
Book accuracy.
7. The problem with something that is this old is that canonically, there should be 11 minutes of footage. However, we have only like 5 minutes left. So, and in 5 minutes, what are you going to do? I think what is there is accurate to the book. So I gave it a 7.
Yeah. Check it out on YouTube. It doesn't take a lot of time.
5 minutes, exactly.
I thought it was cute. I was surprised they were actually doing special effects.
Yeah.
In 1901, I mean, they were doing ghosts. They were doing double people on the screen. I was like stunned.
Yeah.
There's not even sheets in between with text. They haven't even come up with that yet.
I think maybe the sheets may have been there, but got lost in that 11 minutes that got lost. So
who knows?
Who knows? But it doesn't. I mean, you know the story, so it doesn't really require it. And 5 minutes is not enough anyway.
Yeah.
They had a very young Tiny Tim, like maybe 5 years old. So that was cute. They did in the 5 minutes. They did 4 separate scenes. It's not bad. I mean,
was this the one where it actually says Happy Xmas? Because that was this one, or that was the other silent movie one.
There's a 1913. But, it's going to come. Well, we'll do that one after.
I was surprised that it actually said Happy Xmas. So that whole Xmas with an X, is that old? Didn't know that.
Yes. I think it probably did something like that because they made sure that the text was really the text that was not on cards was really large. So I think they probably felt that the graininess of the material needed large lettering. So maybe they shortened it down like that. We'll find the
and
1913
it also
one.
had that they felt that worth putting on like letters on the screen as a backdrop to their scene. And the other thing that they had as a backdrop, a similar way, was God bless us everyone. So they really wanted to say, we're doing this for Christmas, everybody have a happy Christmas. And the message is, Tiny Tim says, God bless us everyone.
Yes. Yeah. I believe this actually that's this one.
Okay, so this is called Old Scrooge, 1913. Of course, it's silent. It's 40 minutes.
And on YouTube.
And it's also on YouTube. Everything before 1920 something can be on YouTube.
Yeah, but it's not always there. I checked. It's actually on YouTube.
Yeah. I saw it on YouTube. And then it's written by Seymour Hicks. And he also plays Ebenezer Scrooge. Directed by Leedham Bantock.
I looked up Seymour Hicks. He had actually quite a long career after this into the talkies, and so he stuck around.
Yeah,
that's good. I like. I'm giving it a book accuracy of 7. This one is longer. It's 40 minutes, but silent, so they have to do everything with mime. There are a lot of text cards and. More than we as a modern audience would like to see, but I have seen a few more silent movies, and they have a lot of more text cards than we would like to see. Yeah. Because the text cards actually stops the action dead, and then you have to read it. And they quote quite a bit.
They ram it full of text.
Yeah, they quoted quite a bit of. On the one hand, they quoted quite a bit of the original. On the other hand, because it takes up so much real estate, it was annoying that they quoted so much of it.
Yeah. So, but that is in 1913 is so early. You're still having to figure out. I think by the 1920s they were figuring out doing proper silent movies, and then by 27 silent movies, so they get the kibosh.
They actually did make a executive decision on how do we present it, because they actually start with Dickens. You get a scene of Dickens sitting down and writing this story, which is I thought was charming in its own way.
Yeah.
It's the only version who actually has Dickens in it. So you get an actor to play Dickens, which may have been Seymour Hicks himself.
No.
You looked it up?
The Muppet Christmas Carol.
But they don't. Not in this way.
Dickens is in it.
Yeah, but this just prefaces with Dickens. They say something about Dickens, and he sits down and writes a story, and then you go into the story. Then they make another interesting choice. When you go to the ghost, you start with Marley visits, and then you should go have different ghosts, but you only have 40 minutes. And so what they do is they have Marley do all the ghosts. Yeah. So Marley takes Scrooge around, and this is smart if you have like 40 minutes and no sound, because you condense some of these characters into one character, and it makes sense. Smart move.
I've seen that in several TV productions where it's like an episode of and then it's like, instead of having all these different things, unless you can hook it to like known characters of the cast.
Yes.
But if you have to bring in a new character, sometimes they just like, okay,
but
we're just taking you around, and that's
in 1913, that was an interesting choice to go.
You have
to go off the book like that. I mean, they first do a homage to the writer and the book, because they actually pick up the book and stuff like that, and or facsimile of same. But they do a homage to the writer, and then they go off story that much, and that's in a way it's ballsy in 1913. Very ballsy.
It's not only ballsy; it is also innovative. You have to really
exactly.
get off the idea of we must do it this way, but we still want to be true to the thing. So how can we do it without making the thing something else?
Yeah,
and that's always a struggle when you do an adaptation.
Yes. And then there's the things I didn't like. As much as Seymour Hicks is a good actor, I didn't like the choice of making Scrooge shabby. He's very shabby and very under... Scrooge should be a man of business. He should be maybe not fancily dressed. He's not a dandy, but he should be properly dressed. And he was shabby, and that is not right.
He should present himself well.
Yeah, he should present well enough. I mean, yes, older guy, but well enough as a businessman. And I was thinking at first, oh, they don't have the means to do that in 1913, but then Fred walks in and he is properly, very nicely dressed. So yes, they can do that. And I'm sort of going, this is not the right choice. So I was very, other than that, I think, well, it is a silent movie, so everybody's just gesturing around.
You're going to have to deal with that.
So acting prowess is not that great in a silent movie as such to our sensibilities. To their sensibilities is a different matter. But so I gave it a book accuracy of 7, and I gave it a final score of 6.5.
Yeah.
Because they it wasn't the greatest. I'm sorry.
So I would like to address the shabbiness and how Scrooge presents himself from the 1951 version with Alistair Sim. Because I was like, okay, why did they choose this actor? Because he is very drab, but he's
very famous at the time.
He does it very well, and then he is shabby. His hair is totally unkempt for the whole thing.
Yeah, but his clothing is properly dressed, and that's what the problem with this one is that he's wearing tatters. And
I'm not saying that he did that, but I was looking at him going, this is a great version, but would I have chosen that actor? Until we get to the point where he comes out of it, he is back home, and he's like, I want to live, I want to have fun, and then he just starts, and that, you talked about this before, like the smile comes through, and you think, oh, where's this going? And he starts to giggle and stuff. And the joy that he displayed, and they gave him time to actually go around and do all the things that is described in the book. He goes to Freddy, and he sends the turkey around. He does all the things. And then he does the next morning with Cratchit, and then he breaks out in laughter. And it's just, he was delightful.
Yes.
Which, like, for the first
two
thirds or three quarters of the movie, I was not expecting him to be that personable at the end, and I think that's what sells it, because then by that time I'm like, I'm Saul, this is happiness, this is the Christmas cheer, and this is
and that needs to be in there. And the 1913 version, I just remembered, they actually mess up the next morning thing, because they only have 40 minutes. He goes to Fred instead of going to Fred for dinner, he goes to the Cratchits, and then the next morning he wants to play the prank on Bob Cratchit, but then it doesn't work. So this one, I think the problem is it's just too early, and I'm glad that Seymour Hicks had a good career after that, and
we know that 40 minutes is not enough time to tell the story. I mean, they didn't even have dialogue to help them out, so
it's not enough. Yes.
Yeah. What's the next movie?
Well, we went from one that's too short. Go.
Oh dear.
Well, let's go for one that's long enough, or should be long enough.
Oh, I see the score. All right. Right, A Christmas Carol 2019. I've not seen this one, so you're gonna have to...
It is on YouTube if you want to see it. It is BBC.
It's a mini-series of almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
Guy Pearce as Ebenezer Scrooge, Andy Serkis as the Ghost of Christmas Past. Let me see if I can find any other
not really.
actors of note. Book accuracy, A6. Talk to me about this.
BBC.
BBC
C
should be book accurate. We've had good results with BBC.
Yeah. My general conclusion is, they do the story and then they go off script.
What do they fill it with?
A lot of literally a lot of nothing, because is this supposed to be 3? It's supposed to be 3 episodes, but the version I saw was one continuous thing. But the first third is just hot air or cold air, as the case may be.
3 hours, you could do so much.
You could do so much.
There is literally, with 3 hours, you can do 45 minutes of each, actually, like 40 minutes of each section. The before Marley shows up, and you just show how everybody is, and you show how bad Scrooge is. Then you can do Ghost 1, Ghost 2, Ghost 3, which is like lots of backstory, lots of in the now, that's usually a little shorter. And then there's the future scary stuff. And then you can do another 20 minutes of
closing, of being happy.
Making good and giving the promise for the future.
Yeah.
I mean, there is literally so much you could do. And
you see, the thing about the book is that you could just take the book, put a writer on it, and just tell the writer, write me a script that does exactly what the book does. It is so filmic. Yeah. There is nothing you need to add, nothing at all, and they added so much garbage.
Did they have him go around? Did the Ghost of Christmas Present take him around various parts of the world to show them how everybody's?
They spent an enormous amount of time on Marley and talking to some of the spirits and about this. They also spent a long time on making. Okay, I understand. When you read the book, and this book is from 1843, a heck of a long time ago. And 1843 is about a guy who clearly has some sort of problem. And in 1843, Dickens has no idea. And now when you make a thing in 2019, you want to try and explain him.
Yeah.
And how they explain him.
We want to psychoanalyze him.
Yes, and I understand that. But what they did was they gave him an OCD.
Oh, no. That is not his problem.
His OCD, he's also one of the younger ones. I think he's probably like 40 instead of, he should be about 60. But he's about 40. So they gave him OCD. They gave him an autistic...
on the autism spectrum, maybe?
Yeah, no, not that clearly. They give him too much analytical thought because he cannot deal with the world as it is. So he tries to organize it into OCD kind of order. This is where the money comes in. But also his understanding of humans, he tries to put analysis on them. And this is where it completely goes down the drain.
So he becomes an alien.
It goes down the drain, and I'm not sure if I can say this on I'll try to put it in.
We can cut it out.
No, I do want to say it because they put it in and it's on YouTube. So what he does is he plays games with people on a interpersonal abusive thing level. He plays a game with Mrs. Cratchit about money because she needs money for Tiny Tim.
He should not have a scene with Mrs. Cratchit at all.
Exactly, and it goes way, way, way too far. So... But this is in a past where, at that school where he was left because his father didn't want him to come home, before Fanny comes in, the schoolmaster does things to him that no schoolmaster should do to any kid.
Right.
And then Fanny does come, but his conclusion later is that, yes, she came, but she came too late.
Yeah, I would agree with that in all
versions. Except it never that bad stuff, the extra bad stuff that is not in the book, isn't in the bloody book. And it's added in here in a heavy-handed way that I hated it. I hate it.
So they are trying to find modern reasons
and apply them to
a modern look on how horrible it could have been for him, and that's why it turned out so horribly.
It was already horrible without that added stuff. Just being left alone for years on end in a school will hurt any kid.
I think
you don't need the extra.
So having seen like 10 of them by now, I think with Scrooge himself, it was blow number one was that he grew up effectively completely alone, and he seems to have, yes, he says he has friends in that school, but it goes nowhere. He doesn't even take his friends to the next place he goes to. He doesn't talk about writing to them or anything. Because people stayed in touch in those days. But you were writing people.
He was never that close with them, no.
So that whole friends is just, I think that is overstated. So being completely alone until, let's call it, the age of 14. And after that, the death of Fanny in childbirth. Because that was the only nice person in his life, except for the Fezziwigs.
But they're not his family. None of these people are his family, except for Fanny. And Fanny.
Blow 1 was basically the worst, and then Blow 2 made sure that he could never, he would never want to enter normal life.
And then the third thing is that he meets Marley, and
that's just effing back luck.
Yeah,
I mean, all of it's effing back luck, of course.
And the book is not about Marley, so they don't tell you much about Marley. But as I can see it, if you want to be able to redeem this Scrooge, he has to have something inside that is redeemable. If he is the instigator of all this grubbiness, then it doesn't work. But if it comes from a Marley, or more particular, them together, as in a match made in hell, kind of together.
Because they both have nobody else. They don't have a partner. They don't have anybody to ground them.
But it's Marley is going to have to be a large push towards this abyss that he is now standing on the edge of, because otherwise he is not redeemable. If his character is such that he is intrinsically gravitating towards this kind of life, then he cannot be redeemed. You cannot use anything to redeem a person like that. And the failing of the book is from 1843. That's a heck of a long time ago, and I'm going to repeat it again because it is a heck of a long time ago. This is 50 years before Freud started his practice. 50 years before the idea of psychological damage was even an idea. So
and yet Dickens had some concept of it.
But he
seemed to have gotten, like, how can I show people how this man got to this point? If you just say every person is a blank slate to start with, and all placed here by God, because he was of course religious, and then you how did he get to be this hard and cruel? Well, because he has seen harshness and cruelty his entire life. That's what he's been taught.
The problem with the book is that because Dickens had no idea, and Scrooge is actually a construct. He's an imaginary construct, and of course Dickens would try to base people on real people, and a lot of people recognize stuff from Dickens because he did base them on real people. But and he may have known somebody like Scrooge, but I hope not.
No,
but
I think he might have.
I think he probably met somebody who was not nearly as bad. But it's a construct, and therefore he cannot. If you try to psychoanalyze a construct from a time when people had no idea of psyches, it's
more clever.
It doesn't work.
It's very clever because he has Scrooge, who in all the backstory we see all the things that happened that led up to him deciding the world is cruel and the only cruel people will benefit or will make it. But there's passing it forward because he passes it forward to his housekeeper. Sometimes it's the undertaker and whoever else comes to take stuff from his place, and they go to the spider guy, who is also harsh and cruel. And everybody, it's all trickled down from everybody. He understood that ripple effect.
He even passes it on to Cratchit because Cratchit he completely torpedoes his self-worth and his
and Cratchit's wife, who has harshness in her heart towards the employer of her husband, who literally does keep her husband employed in a job that he would otherwise may have gone to a factory and he'd be paid half or less at any rate, and he would be effectively doing hard labor. So they're leaving him in this job that is underpaid, he's overworked, etc., because it is the best of all the options they have. That's why Scrooge can get away with that.
The brilliant thing about the book is that in 1843 Dickens even wrote it. However, it doesn't. If you want to if BBC wants to psychoanalyze it in 2019 and add whatever they think in OCD and abuse into it, it's garbage. And so I gave this a book accuracy of 6, and I gave it a 6- for execution.
6-?
Because
it's not happening, this one.
Okay, let's say a couple of really nice things about it. It's what they call colorblind casting. So Mrs. Cratchit is black, of black extraction anyway. I think she's already, doesn't matter. But
person of color of some sort.
Yeah, give this one a miss. It's not, no.
Any 6- we do not recommend you sit down for.
Next. This is BBC, but it is good.
All right.
Oh, better anyway.
A Christmas Carol. The year 2000. It's a TV movie and it's 1 hour and 15 minutes.
And it's on YouTube if you want to see it.
Yes, directed by Catherine Morshead. Oh, it's nice when it's a woman. And then Ray Farron as Jacob Marley. Where's Scrooge? Ross Kemp as Eddie Scrooge. Eddie.
Yeah. And
they had to do something with the names.
For the people who don't know it, which would be everybody, and
Michael Maloney is Bob Cratchit, by the way.
Yes. In 2000 and before that, Ross Kemp was the bad guy from Eastenders, which is a daytime soap, BBC, and he was a very, very scrumptious bad guy, everybody's favorite bad guy. So him playing this is absolutely wonderful. He is a little young for Scrooge, because Scrooge is usually 60s, and he's now 35, 40, which is... But that doesn't matter, because this is a modern version.
This is an AU.
This is an AU.
And I like AUs.
If done well, yes.
I've seen several now, and I enjoy them. I think it's a good idea to go with. So they have very little time. They have 1 hour and 15 minutes. They have to put down the AU.
Yeah.
As in, which alternate reality are we in? It is not the 1840s.
1840s. I put it at book accuracy as 7.5 with a little asterisk because because it's an AU, they can't do the regular text. This gives you a disadvantage, but it also gives you an advantage. The disadvantage, of course, is that you don't have the God bless us everyone. But the advantage is
we don't have the God bless us
everyone, and you're not stuck with it when you don't want it. You're free to do whatever you like within still telling the story. So I still give it a 7.5 because they do the story.
They do the story. They change enough that you say, okay, because you have the freedom. You don't have to... the spirits don't have to do it all in one night. It doesn't have to be hour 1, hour 2, hour 3. So they have some freedom to have him walk around each time I don't know if that's too much of a spoiler, but
No.
he gets to walk around in between spirits.
They
He gets to do the Christmas Christmas Eve over and again.
Yeah, they do a Groundhog Day kind of.
Yes.
He gets the chance to implement what he learned that after each spirit, which is interesting in itself.
That.
I liked it
because you see him learning.
Yeah, and it's all set in a sort of an Eastender, because Eastenders is London, so it's modern London, some sort of modern apartment building, and it's all set around that little circuit that he does.
With modern you don't mean nice.
No,
you just mean modern. So it is probably
in a state somewhere.
An estate, which is social housing that aren't terribly, everybody's poor, and so he's a loan shark. And
it's a pretty nasty one. He's a pretty nasty.
This is one of the ones where he actually does repossess things. The American one is also one where he goes in and repossesses things.
I don't think it's in this version. He's not repossessing them. He's taking stuff in pain, because this is not in American versions.
Okay. I thought there was repossessing
the way that Americans do it is not how it's done in England or Europe. This paying in installments is not regular. So when he takes stuff back, is because people owe him stuff and he's going to take it and just sell it.
And sell that thing in order to recoup money.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, okay, so the American version also has him toting stuff.
We'll do that after.
Which is the only two versions that I saw that Scrooge is actually physically doing things with things. Every other version, he is a booksman, an accountant man.
Ross Kemp is more of a bad guy bully than he is a pen pusher.
Pick up the television, rip it out of the wall, and walk down the gallery.
And if you're in the way, he'll just put you over the gallery yourself. Yes. So it's a completely. He's a gangster. And this is one of the most gangstery ones there is.
How ruthless he is, and that's fair because Scrooge has done things so bad that people died. He has evicted children from, in the middle of winter from their shelter and things like that. They will have died in the cold, and that's addressed sometimes, but not all the time.
Yeah, and
here you can just see it.
Yeah, and in this version, because it's a modern version set in the 2000 and nows, you have to address how would a person like Scrooge be. What would his situation be? And being a crook, a gangster, a British gangster, but gangster and nonetheless an underworld figure is where you would end up. Yes.
Yep. And then you are going to be dealing with life and death. So various things deal with life and death. The Tiny Tim situation deals with life and death. And since we have we have the NHS, we as in the UK, as the NHS.
We also have something, but not.
It's not a money issue.
No.
And it was in the 1840s for Cratchit. But in this one, it is not a money issue.
Yeah.
In this one, they make it a timeshare issue. So the timeshare issue is that for Cratchit in this one is that his wife needs him to be there with the kids and at the hospital, and Tim's in the hospital,
and he is
going
to die.
Going to get out of the hospital. So it's like literally you have to be there, and he can't be there because he owes
a debt, money.
He owes it to Eddie. And Eddie's not going to let him go because you want time off to be with your family. You want time off for Christmas. There's no such thing. And so that's the part, that story, how that goes.
But then you want to have Scrooge get a chance to actually save somebody, and so
there's the other life and death situation.
There's a life and death situation of the young lady and the young man, the brother and sister, and I think they actually stand in for something that they don't do in all the versions, which is the ignorance and want. That's what they're standing in for.
My theory of that was that they were standing in for the workhouses and the prisons.
Yeah, but the ignorance and wants are standing in for that as well.
So
yes.
For the decreasing of surplus population, he comes across them at the bottom of the staircase in the winter. And they are homeless.
Yeah.
And there's a young boy siblings.
Yeah, 15 or something like that.
And you can see that they're sick. And he's just like, can't they just do this somewhere else? Why do they have to stand here? That's the cruelty that they can show.
Let me remind you what's in the original book. In the original book, at the end of the Christmas presents, when he is just before he leaves, Scrooge says, "Oh, I see a hand under your cloak," and then the spirit reveals that there is a tiny girl and a tiny boy under there, and they look terrible. And he explains the boy is ignorance, the girl is want, and they are the children of men. They beware of them.
Beware the boy.
Yeah, because ignorance
is worse.
Ignorance is worse. And so a lot of the cleaner versions skip this part, and I think it's very important that you don't, because that is the third of the three messages in the book is everything that the Ghost of Christmas Present says is most of its message. He just keeps saying really good stuff. It's the most important part of this book. And I like it that sometimes these surprising versions suddenly pick up the ignorance in one bit and do something with it, like
it's
here.
So clever.
Because in this one, Scrooge gets a chance to save them. He first gets to see a glimpse of how it goes wrong, and then he gets, because he the Groundhog Day setup, he gets a chance to save them, and that is nice.
It's very nice. And this is the year 2000, and one of the things he does wrong in his first attempt to save them, because he gets several attempts, and the first attempt is he wants to get the medical people in to deal with her. She's clearly very, very sick, and he runs out to get medical people, and then later it turns out the medical people, the ambulances and the police do not come into that area. So now we're talking ghetto.
Yeah, the ambulance will only come if it has a police escort, and then the police has to be. So you need, for every ambulance, you need also 2 police cars.
And it was also too late.
Too late. Then it's too late by that time.
She was literally dying, and in that version, in the other versions, the boy died fairly soon after, of what is not clear, and then when he does actually save them, it's like, okay, we're doing this first. He has an idea in his head. We need to get this done, that done, and that done. He picks. We need to. So this is where the Groundhog Day thing comes into its own, because he knows what needs to happen, and he gets in time for her. He gets to the hospital by putting the girl in his own car, stuffing the boy right behind it, and drives.
He drives them.
He literally, because he's a big dude, he picks her up, and there is no greater showing of how somebody can do the right thing than literally carrying someone to safety. Yeah, that is what a soldier would do. That is what a hero does. Yeah. So and humility is also something he learns, because the first couple of times he doesn't learn humility, so he doesn't get the girl. But when he learns humility, they're hitting all these spots. So I see that you gave it a score of 7+. Yeah, and I would like to give it a higher score than that, because it's so good. And I need
to get a pen. We can do that.
I would
definitely
advise,
7.5 is 7.5 is definitely on the table.
I would advise anybody to watch this one as just a really, really good version. Absolutely worth your time, and it's only 1:15.
Yeah. Animated.
Oh. Yeah, I haven't seen those.
These are actually, I'm going to sort of combine them. 2 animated versions, one from 1969. There is a lot, around the 1970 mark, there's a lot of different ones. I just picked one almost random. It's on YouTube. And the other one is the Mickey Christmas Carol, which is Disney and not on YouTube. It's from 1983. It's nicer if you have nice animation. The 1969 one has lousy.
Oh no.
It's so terrible. But other than that, I would give the book accuracy a 7.5. Because they do hit all the points. And what was good about it was the voice acting. They had some really British people, and yeah. Redo it, the animation, maybe?
Yeah.
We can be really short about that. Oh yeah, it made 1 point. Pretty much every version you see always makes one interesting point or something. Hey, that's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah. And this one sort of, because they're doing it in 45 minutes, they had to shorthand in a lot of things. They short-handed in the way that Scrooge is by sort of plain out saying that the only thing he can understand is the simplicity of money. The rest, it's all weird to him. That's an interesting point to make. So, yeah. I like the overall score was just a 6+ because it's pretty ugly. But it's worth your 45 minutes.
I'll give it a pass.
You can switch it on and just listen to it. The voice acting is pretty good. So, that was that. The Mickey's Christmas Carol, 1983. Disney. Book accuracy of 7. It's so generic. I mean, it's beautiful animation, of course. It's Disney. Duh. And the music is the usual Disney. Sort of 1950s flowery kind of music, even though it's 1983. I was sort of looking, hey, when is this made? Yeah, 1983. Okay. Could have done in the 50s as well. It's just
wow.
Yeah,
if you can't see the difference between 50s and 80s, that's bad.
I think that may be the big problem with it. Is this thing is so generic.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the only fun part for the audience is that they have all the known Disney characters, the shorter animation Disney characters like Mickey and Donald and Daisy and Goofy. They are playing all the characters.
So is it Scrooge? Is Scrooge McDuck?
It is Scrooge McDuck. In Dutch, it's the character called Dagobert.
Yeah.
He
There's a remake of Scrooge McDuck. Because David Tennant did a series, animation, of course. He did the voice of Scrooge McDuck in like a few years ago. Like maybe even the 2020s, but certainly the late 2010s. And there is actually a Christmas Carol episode of that. I haven't seen any of it, but that's, yeah.
Okay. This one's very generic. Book accuracy of 7. Final score is 7. They don't do anything more with it. They don't...
What are the stakes? It's just Scrooge McDuck and having them understand that there's more than a goal to the world.
Yeah, and because it's only 25 minutes, they have to gloss over a whole bunch of things. They skip his past. They start with skipping his past because it's also not fun, so you don't want to do that. But... It's because it's also animation, the genericness makes it impossible to place in time because Daisy is wearing a dress, is dress shaped, you know. Is it an 1860s dress? Is it an 1840s dress? It's not a Regency dress, which it ought to have been, but it's got too much volume for that. So that's all I can say. It's so generic. Nothing wrong with it, but it's a 7.
Okay. I would like to put an entry in that isn't in the list. Because I just realized I watched another one.
Oh dear. let me get the pen out. And paper.
It is the Smurfs Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I looked at that, but is it a real Christmas Carol?
It is a real Christmas Carol.
Smurfs.
Yes. Smurfs.
And it's probably like 90s or 2000s, probably then. I'll look up the dates.
We'll look it up, but it is recent enough that they are able to do 3D animation.
Oh, then it's
because they did a very clever thing, which I remembered because I had seen it before, and it was just delightful. Where they start with the modern animation of the Smurfs. And then he wakes up from his... Well, he being Grumpy Smurf, of course. wakes up from his gruel, sitting there literally like Scrooge is. It's so it's very literal. And then he's like, "What happened? I'm flat," and it's 2D animation because he's in the past. It's so cool. And it doesn't get back to 3D animation until the whole spirit thing is over.
Okay.
And they go through every single motion.
Book accuracy?
Book accuracy, yes. I mean, literally, it is probably 25 minutes. You have to kind of go at a clip. But his past is being done, and the Christmas now and then the Christmas future is an absolute total disaster. So he has to save all of Smurfdom, obviously, from Gargamel. Yes, we say Gargamel in Dutch, which is a lot more scary than Gargamel. Because we can it twice. It's lovely. It's so much fun. Do it, and it's all about hats.
All about hats.
Because he wanted a kite.
Fly a kite.
Either a kite or a hang glider, because in Dutch it's the same word. So I'm not quite sure which one he wanted. He wanted to fly for Christmas.
Then you need to fly a hang glider.
He wanted the hang glider for Christmas, and Papa Smurf always makes hats for everybody. And I think Papa Smurf pretty much is Father Christmas in this thing. Yeah. So there's no question there. It was just lovely. Okay. It's so cute. And book accuracy, very good. They follow the story, and you see him go in decline over the years as well. So they really, yeah.
The final score, I usually put the final score as what was the book, what did they bring out of the book, and what did they do with it? Do they do something more, or do they do less with it than they ought to have done?
They do something appropriate with it for Smurfs, and it's delightful. Yeah, so definitely 7.5.
7.5 book score, it's and 7.5 final score.
And it's a lovely 25 minutes.
Okay. Then it also goes on
the file. We also have another animated one in our stack.
Yes.
That I watched and that you didn't watch.
Which one?
But it is an alternate reality. This is the Barbie Christmas Carol.
Yeah. We have
animated.
We have two more animated in here. The other one you will also watch with me, which I probably forgot.
I did. Oh.
Yes, it was last year.
Last year. Last year. So, Barbie in a Christmas Carol. This is in the series of films that they made, trying to create they did create a film franchise for the Barbies.
Straight to DVD. I think it's straight to DVD.
Yes, it was. They had a was it like Kid Watch or something like that? There's this company that actually puts it out in the theaters short, but then it goes to DVD, the DVD market. So it's properly DVD. It has a DVD cover and everything. So it's a proper production.
The entire series, because I think they did like 25 of these things. It's kind of merchant.
They did 14. Yeah.
It's for Barbie to give Barbie stories, because they always put out books for Barbie, but this is the modern things of putting books for Barbie.
Yeah, because sales were in decline in the late 90s, and they realized that you need to
do modern stuff.
Yeah,
this is modern.
You need to do storytelling with your Barbies, and that.
And this they did everything, including a Christmas Carol.
Yeah, this is the second to last, the penultimate. I love that word. It's so good. The penultimate of the movies of that. And Elise Allen wrote this. She wrote some of the really good ones, including the Nutcracker, which was the first one they did. And it looks like they really had an idea of, we're going for classics, and we're going to put Barbie in the classics.
They're cheap because you don't have to pay for the copyrights.
This is what Disney does as well. Yeah. It just goes for stuff that has been around for centuries. But there's nothing wrong with that if you do it well. And then slowly they started making original works, which was also by Diane Duane, who also was in the Star Trek franchise and several other things. So they had some proper writing talent on this. And most of the voices are Canadian. So I'm going to go with that. The whole production was Canadian. The voice for Eden Starling, who is our Scrooge character in this, is a British theatre actress. Mm-hmm. So they did go outside to get, we need somebody to do this particular part. It has to be proper British.
Yep.
So I think they did a fantastic job. It is an absolute AU, but they put it back in that time. So, mid-1800s. I can't say for sure because I'm not versed enough in the dresses and
and with
things.
animation, I find with the animations, it's so much easier to just do generic dress or generic coat for men and generic dress for the ladies. You cannot tell almost. And
but it also means you can get away with a lot more. You have a wider net to cast and say, okay, it's around that time. It's certainly after the 1810s. It's not Napoleonic, and it's certainly there's no bustles, so it's somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah.
Obviously, things like the Civil War isn't mentioned because it's set in London.
They're not interested in the Civil War because not their civil.
Even though that this is North American, they are doing.
It's generic.
They're doing the story properly. And the first movie that they made, the one with Nutcracker, you have Barbie and you have Kelly, who is now renamed Chelsea because Kelly is the little sister. And after these series of movies ended, they changed Kelly's name to Chelsea. So in these movies, it's still Kelly. She tells Kelly the story of this, and then you see all the Barbies doing that. Now, this is the same. Not all of the movies have this particular framing for why this is going on. But it has a point at the end of this movie, because we find out, and I'm going to give it away. So...
Oh dear!
Spoiler.
You're gonna spoil the Barbie movie from 2008.
Yes.
Oh no!
It's a Christmas Carol.
You kind of know how it's gonna end
because you find out it's actually about an ancestor of theirs, and so we need so it's gender flipped. This is the first gender flip that I saw, but it's gender flipped. Because of course it's all about the Barbies, and it's and they give them names. Eden Starling is our Scrooge character, and then you've got Catherine is the Freddy character. Cousin Freddy, but in this case it's the best friend.
It's Cratchit, isn't it?
I don't know if there's a Cratchit in this one. I mean, it's Freddy and Cratchit in one.
You can combine them. Yeah, the thing about and this is why we put the book accuracy at 7.5. You can't go higher on a 7 on an AU because you lose so much. And then you are free to combine characters if it makes sense.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, and we have the love interest, which is called Fred, which is confusing.
But he's Bella, so he's Bella.
He's Bella, and you need to have them all because they're Barbies. So there are older Barbies, but they're very rare. Generally, you're talking about a 20-something Barbie, and in this case, they're all 20-somethings. And of course, she has time to get over the problem.
That's one of the nice things about the AUs.
It's
one of the nice things about AUs because you can now have your Scrooge be younger and get the partner that he or she might want, and get a second chance. Get a second chance at life because actual Scrooge, who is 60, yes, he can. Embraces the spirit of Christmas, but he can never get his life back. It's nearly over. Yeah. All he can do is in the last 10 years from now, or the 5 years from now, he can try and make right what he did before. Yeah. But he can never have a life anymore.
He can save people. He can save the Cratchit family.
But he can't.
But to be honest, he's going to die imminently. Let's call it within the next 5 years.
Yeah,
from
5 or 10 years.
The moment that the story starts. Fred is going to take that capital and he is going to make good for Cratchit. Yeah. I mean, Tiny Tim's going to die if he doesn't do anything. That's the most imminent thing. But if he doesn't do anything, eventually that money's going to be
and
used for good.
The only thing that the canonical Scrooge can save is Tiny Tim and his own immortal soul. But the rest of his life,
and Dickens might find that more
is already
spent.
Yeah. But an AU version, you get a chance to make them young enough to do that. To
Marley says it in various versions, therefore I think it's in the book, but you can say whether it's not. He says, mankind, humanity was supposed to be my business, and I failed.
That's in the book.
And I think that is so strong, because it says we were good at business. Yes, we were good at business, but we were doing the wrong business.
Yes.
We should have been in the business of mankind.
Yes.
And that's another message that Dickens is saying, is if we're not here for each other, then what are we doing? If we're here to make everybody else miserable and just climb the ladder over the heads of people. Yeah. Now, in the Barbie one, in the Barbie world, obviously people don't die, right? No. You can't have Tiny Tim dying. Now, Tiny Tim is Tammy in this one. And this is in this one they have an orphanage that Catherine, which is the friend, Catherine takes care of the kids in the orphanage, and she's intending to go because she's a costume designer. And Eden, the Scrooge character, is effectively an opera singer, but they don't quite call it opera, but it's like super high stage singing. And so Catherine wants to get away, make a name for herself, come back, and then help the orphanage. When she comes back, orphanage is gone. And that's the big danger. We don't know where the kids have gone. We don't know if they're all right. And because of that, Catherine, in the future, Christmas future, Catherine goes downhill. It's just like, Eden was right, Scrooge character. Eden was right. You should never take care of anybody but yourself. And you should, and so she becomes hard and heartless, and that's what gets Eden. It's just like we need to save the orphanage, and I need to save my friend, because I don't, herself being that bad didn't bother her that much, but seeing her friends, yes. So that was a very interesting take on how to put that in. The changeover, and it works. I thought it was a really good version. I gave it a 7. Yeah, and there's a cat. So if you think there's not enough cats in the Christmas Carol,
this is true. There's not enough cats in the
This is your version. You want the cat. No, it's great.
Shall we go straight to the one with the dog?
Oh, there's one with a dog. Okay, let's go for the dog.
This one is a little longer than expected. There's going to have to be part 2. So next time.